Raising the Titanic, The Forgotten Woman Who Survived by Marta Molnar. On a freezing night in April 1912, the unthinkable happened. The Titanic, the unsinkable ship, struck an iceberg, and more than 1,500 souls were lost to the sea. For over a century, we've told and retold the stories of the Titanic, the captain, the band, the lifeboats. But there's one story you've probably never heard. A woman who survived that icy night. A woman who defied society's expectations, who carved her own path, who inspired generations, and then was forgotten. This is not just another Titanic tale. This is Raising the Titanic, not the ship, but the memory of a woman history tried to sink twice. The shadow of the Titanic. The Titanic tragedy has fascinated us for decades. We've seen the wreck on the ocean floor, read survivors' accounts, and watched Hollywood retellings. But what most people don't realize is that even today, more than 40 Titanic victims remain unidentified. Buried in unmarked graves, their names erased, their stories lost. Imagine for a moment, your loved one never comes home, and a century later, no one even remembers their face. That's where Marta Molnar's powerful novel begins. We meet Madison McClain, a forensic artist, a woman trained to give faces back to the nameless, to reconstruct the humanity time has stolen. She joins an ambitious project, to exhume those final 44 unnamed victims of the Titanic. But this isn't just science. It's a media spectacle, cameras rolling, a docuseries crew capturing every moment. And as Madison works, something remarkable begins to surface. A forgotten story that's bigger than bones, bigger than the Titanic itself. Madison's mission. Picture Madison, bent over sketches, piecing together fragments of jawlines, cheekbones, the ghostly outlines of people who never got their stories told. This work is meticulous, intimate, and exhausting. And under the glare of TV lights, the pressure is unbearable. But as she recreates one face after another, one particular story calls to her. A woman survivor, who didn't just endure the Titanic, but lived a life so bold, so unconventional, that Madison finds herself completely captivated. Her name? Helen Churchill Candee. Most people have never heard of her. But Helen wasn't just a passenger. She was a trailblazer, a suffragist, a journalist, a woman who lived without apology at a time when society demanded silence. And this is where the novel grips us. As Madison reconstructs the past, she finds herself inspired by Helen's courage, her refusal to be defined by disaster. The life of Helen Churchill Candee. So who was Helen? Born in 1858, she defied the era's expectations. Instead of living quietly as a wife and mother, she became a writer. She championed women's rights. She traveled the world, even when polite society whispered that respectable women shouldn't. And then came April 1912. Helen was on board the Titanic. When the ship struck ice, chaos erupted. And in that chaos, Helen did something extraordinary. She gave away her life jacket. Why? Because she believed another passenger needed it more. Think about that. In the moment when survival instincts should take over, she chose sacrifice. And yet, she lived. She survived the Titanic, bearing not just physical scars but the weight of memory. But what's remarkable is that Helen didn't let that night define her. She went on to live boldly, refusing to be remembered as just a Titanic survivor. This is what Madison discovers, that Helen's real story isn't about tragedy. It's about resilience. Themes of resilience and forgotten history. At its heart, Raising the Titanic is about memory. About how history decides who gets remembered, and who gets erased. Think about it. How many times have we heard the names of the Titanic's wealthy men, the famous captain, or the musicians who played as the ship went down? But Helen Churchill Candee. A woman who gave up her safety for others, who lived an extraordinary life afterward. Almost no one knows her name. This is where Marta Molnar's novel shines, because it refuses to let women like Helen vanish into the footnotes. And Madison, our modern-day forensic artist, becomes the bridge between past and present. Every phase she reconstructs is more than a skull or a name tag. It's a reminder that history is made of people, each with dreams, struggles, and stories worth remembering. As readers, we're drawn into this double journey, Madison reclaiming history, and Helen reminding us that survival is not just about living through disaster, it's about choosing life, again and again, in the aftermath. Why these stories matter today. So why does this story resonate so deeply with us in 2025? Because we're living in an age obsessed with rediscovery. We binge true crime series to give voice to the voiceless. We watch documentaries that solve cold cases decades later. We want justice, memory, closure, that desire. It gives us suspense, mystery, and emotional truth all at once. And it reminds us of something timeless, that the human spirit is stronger than disaster. Helen Churchill Candee's survival isn't just about the Titanic, it's about resilience in every storm. It's about refusing to be reduced to a victim, choosing instead to live with courage. That message? It's not just history. It's an inspiration. As Madison uncovers Helen's story, she isn't just reconstructing a forgotten face. She's reconstructing her own sense of purpose. And that's what makes Marta Molnar's book so powerful. It isn't only about a shipwreck. It isn't only about forensic science. It's about rescue. Memory, closure. Not just rescuing bodies from the past, but rescuing legacies. Rescuing women's history tried to silence them. Helen Churchill Candee once wrote, "Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace." That's where she lived. That's what Madison learns. And that's what we, as readers, as listeners, carry forward. Because sometimes the most important stories aren't the ones shouted from history's stage. They're the whispers waiting to be heard, waiting to be raised, like the Titanic itself, from the depths. So if you thought you knew the Titanic, think again. Because in Raising the Titanic, you'll discover that survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about choosing the life you were meant to live.